Hello, gentlemen. What's up? Today we're going to be discussing something that's very important. It's very important because a lot of American companies over the last 15 years have normalized something that's just not really all that okay. And it has to do with something that's so boring, okay? And I'm sure that a lot of you are actually already aware of this. But I had a few conversations over the past, I don't know, 2 weeks or so with some of my more corporate buddies, my friends who work at these big tech companies that you guys have all heard of. And a lot of them are complaining about the same things, that their stated values, the company's stated values that they purport to the outside world, are not in line with what they do internally. They're just their beliefs and their behaviors are not integrated. And as we've discussed before in this channel, when your values, your principles, and your behaviors and your actions are not in sync with one another, as at the individual level, you are a mentally ill person. And the same is true, if not even more true, for a corporation, okay? So we're going to be discussing shareholder messaging because I was also reading a couple quarterly reports in preparation for today's research report that'll go out. And if you're not already subscribed to Palaview's market research newsletter, you should be. We're the best in the world. I can't even believe what we're doing. We're going to be publishing like the first 50 reports kind of, overview, kind of breakdown on how that performed. It's just amazing. Wow. Not even tooting our own horn or anything. But from a third-party perspective, it's amazing. So let's just dive into this because this is a very important topic. So again, we're discussing the importance of shareholder communication and what dishonesty in public markets looks like. And in order to do this, we first need to define the difference between a business that produces capital for the sake of it versus one that is mission-driven, because many brands pretend to be mission-driven when they are really profit-driven. And it's actually totally okay for this to change throughout time. It's totally fine for a profit-driven company to become a mission-driven company and vice versa. You're able to take this whole journey as a company, but when you are pretending you are a mission-driven company, when you're actually a profit-driven company, is when you're going to piss someone off like me, okay? So, I created this kind of table, quadrant, chart thing, whatever the fuck you want to call it, that breaks down what I'm trying to describe, okay? So, in this top right quadrant here, we have mission-driven narrative, but is actually mission-driven, okay? So, this is a company that says, hey, I have a mission and my finances are in sync with this stated narrative I'm making, right? And this is the other thing I should have mentioned earlier in the video. When I'm going through these quarterly reports, when a really high level person is going through these quarterly reports, not even me, say, like Jamie Dimon, right? If they're talking a certain talk, right, and you look at their finances afterwards, right, then you're going to recognize that they're full of shit, because you're going to be able to see that the way that they spend their money is not in sync with how they actually structure their narrative for how they're going to be spending their money. So one of the ways that this was first revealed to me was back when I was in college, say in 2016, 2017, Pfizer was, going on this whole campaign about how they're trying to fight diabetes and all these things. But when you really looked into their numbers and you saw the amount of money that they were putting into research and development and compared it to the amount of money that they were spending on just raw advertising and marketing dollars, you don't really need to think too much more about it to recognize that they're absolutely, completely, and totally full of shit, right? And so many companies completely get away with this unethical messaging, right? So that's why we're talking about this. I'm sorry to have to continue to recontextualize what we're actually talking about in this video, all right? So to continue describing what these quadrants show, we have mission-driven narrative, but is actually profit-driven. Profit-driven narrative, but is actually mission-driven. A profit-driven narrative, but is actually profit-driven, right? So you want to be on the right side of this, right? You want to be on the right-hand side, and you want to avoid being on the left, right? Now, in my opinion, here, I got to move my face. 1 second, let me move my face. There's a good place for my face, maybe. Maybe not for the next slide. We'll put it over here. Sorry. All right. So, assuming the business is profitable, they must pay a dividend because first of all, why are you a publicly traded company if you don't have profits? Get out of here. So you have to be profitable. And if you're not profitable enough, I should say, and you are investing into the business because you have a mission-driven narrative that is in sync with your finances, right? Then no, that's basically the only instance where not paying a dividend is okay. And this is another theme, guys. Another theme about the stock market in the 21st century is that tech companies get away with not paying you. I'm sure, because we talk about crypto a lot here, right? I'm sure you've heard your grandparents or your parents complain that, oh, well, is there actually any business underpinning this token? Is there any revenue being generated? And a lot of times it's no, and a lot of times it's yes, right? But what they fail to see is that so many of the stocks that they themselves own don't actually offer them any cash flow. And so there's no difference if I go and buy Snapchat stock or Bitcoin, because Snapchat's never going to pay me any cash flow, any dividend along the way. And it's just a cultural choice. It's something that they just get away with in our current culture. Because why would I take the risk of buying? Because the only way for me to make money on Snapchat is if the share price goes up. And that's the same argument for Bitcoin. And it's just a speculation. It's not even investing. When you own stocks that don't pay you along the way, is it even an investment? Is it just a speculation? No different from buying spot in crypto? And if it is no different, then why would you be doing that ever, right? Sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent, but let's keep moving. So let's walk through a couple, the different phases, different times that Apple and Tesla have had contradicting narratives, right? So when Apple first started, it was mission-driven, and it actually was mission-driven. It was reinvesting a lot of its capital. It was investing a lot in R&D, okay? But very slowly, and then all of a sudden, suddenly, I would argue, post Steve Jobs, maybe in that 2016, 2017 timeframe, Apple became a company that had a narrative that it was mission driven, that it was investing into creating products of the future, when it absolutely fucking was not, and was actually only driven by profits. And that is the time period where our turtle master, Warren Buffett, actually invested into Apple. And if you look today, the way it reports, the way it discusses itself post Warren Buffett becoming a shareholder in it, it has actually sobered up. And it's now absolutely paying a dividend. And it's in sync, right? It's telling you what it is. It has gone from being a mission-driven narrative company that is actually mission-driven to being a mission-driven narrative company that is actually profit-driven to becoming a profit-driven narrative company that is actually profit-driven, right? So when they're selling the American public that, hey, we're actually innovating on the next car, we're innovating on this, so they're taking advantage of what's called opaqueness, right? The opaqueness, the lack of communication that they themselves are engaging in, they are engaging in, right? So they're effectively lying to you so that they can continue to just make their AirPods, make all these little products that they already have created better, right? And so then over time, they reveal that this is actually a lie. And they were just lying for a 5 to 6 year period. And they were really just profit driven, right? And that is how they present themselves today. They are a profit driven business that is actually, going to spend their money as if they are that, right? Now, let's use another example with Tesla. Tesla in its early days was telling investors that we are profit driven, when they're actually behind the scenes very mission driven, right? They're investing in solar panels, they're investing in all these things. And if early on Tesla was actually maximally interested in generating profits like they said that they were in the very beginning, when they had very little profits, right? they would be selling electric car powertrains, right, to other car companies that actually wanted to build, who actually had the infrastructure, had the systems to build electric cars. So they could have Tesla could have, I don't know how well you guys have studied Tesla, but Tesla very easily could have just sold electric powertrains to GM, Ford, and become a billion-dollar business. And that in Elon Musk was literally telling shareholders that in the very early days that this is something that they are exploring to do. But I think he would even in behind closed doors acknowledge that he was just lying behind his teeth, right? So now obviously Elon Musk gets he's Elon Musk, right? This is an easy example, but it's not necessarily the ethical thing to do. And I want you guys to be able to identify when you see this happening, because it's happening all the fucking time. Okay? So these are the conclusions for today's video. Brands go through phases, and that's okay. Apple can jump around, right? Apple can jump around in terms of what its values are, where it's spending its money, right? What matters to them. But they can't lie about when their values are they have to be telling you in the moment on a quarterly basis what they're doing and why, and be honest about it, right? And the other thing I would encourage all you to do is to read more quarterly reports. If you want to understand businesses, if you understand how these things work, because they say that that winners write history, right? But whoever spends the time to write the history, to write out the narrative, controls history, right? You being the writer, you can go to our meta skills storytelling video to if you want to explore that topic more. But that's that. Okay, that's today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Apologize for all the cursing, but this is bullshit sometimes when you see these companies and they're just and they're making hundreds of billions of dollars a year, but they're still lying to shareholders. And you can see that they're lying with their finances. It's not like with the Pfizer example, when I was, I was 20 years old when I learned that. And it wasn't, I'm not some fucking genius. You don't need to be some genius to figure this out. All right. Later, guys.